presentation, I'll jump back into the chat function and see if there's any questions. So yes, welcome to today's webinar on Heal Your Gut. So thanks for joining. I really appreciate you putting aside your time, investing into your health. And what we'll do is get started. I'm going to show my screen, and here we go. So share. Okay. Here we go, underway now. Heal your gut. So for those that don't know me, I do know a lot of you on the call. I'm Anthony Hartcher. I'm a clinical nutritionist and lifestyle medicine specialist. So in terms of my background, I very much started in a different field, that being chemical engineering. And I certainly enjoyed my time in chemical engineering, and got to travel the world and I was fascinated with science. So I certainly loved the chemistry and the science and applying that in a real sense. So got involved with manufacturing. So that was a journey worthwhile, but that led me onto a path that I'm passionate about. So someone's joining. I'll just let them in. Here we go. Okay. Just make sure everyone's in. Yes. Cool. So yeah, so then I went on to follow my passion, went back to study another 8 more years, finished up with 2 more degrees, and that being a Bachelor of Complementary Medicine and a degree in Nutrition and Dietetic Medicine, which leads me to what I'm doing today. I love sharing my knowledge and passion with those, or with anyone I can, essentially. And today I'm sharing one of the topics I'm most passionate about because I'm very invested into mental health. And there's a strong connection between our gut function and our mental health. So what is our gut? So it's very much not just our stomach. We very much refer to our gut. The gut, in terms of medical terms, is very much referred to as the gastrointestinal tract, which goes from the mouth all the way down to the anus. And you can see here in this picture, there's the mouth, there's our salivary glands, it goes down to our esophagus, into our stomach, into the small intestine, and then through the large intestine out through the anus. So we're going to be covering pretty much all of this, and in particular, the large intestine and small intestine. The small intestine is where we absorb the majority of our nutrients, so it's important that that's functioning well. And the large intestine is where we have this fantastic relationship with bacteria. So hopefully it's a symbiotic relationship in terms of we support the bacteria and the bacteria supports us. If we're having symptoms, which I'm going to get onto shortly, then potentially we don't have that symbiotic relationship. We have this imbalance, which often is referred to as a dysbiosis. So we certainly want your ecosystem, your bacterial ecosystem, as happy as it can be. And if we can get it well balanced, then a lot of the symptoms go away and we have certainly improved health. And studies show that the healthier our gut function is, or the more diverse our bacteria is, the healthier outcomes are a result of that. So hence, yeah, we're going to be talking a lot about the gut bacteria and how we can enhance that nice ecosystem, that friendly environment where we don't have those gut-related symptoms. And we're also going to be discussing the other implicating factors on what causes it to go into this dysbiosis or out of balance. We'll also be touching on some of the organs that support digestion, such as the liver and the pancreas, just because that obviously helps the breakdown of food and can, if we aren't excreting these digestive enzymes, then digestion is slow and sluggish and can result in some symptoms. So some of the symptoms you may be experiencing could be all the way from, reflux, heartburn in terms of the upper GIT tract, all the way down to the bottom of the GIT tract, which is constipation and diarrhea. And in the middle, you get that sort of gut feeling. It just doesn't feel right. It's just not sitting right. I'm feeling sick, that nausea. That's really much in that gut area. You feel that. And then that bloated, distended abdomen, that terrible, uncomfortable feeling that just doesn't go away. It just sits there. And you just want to release the gas and get it out somehow to provide some comfort. So we're certainly going to be covering all this symptomatic profile throughout the talk in terms of what you can do to address it. And in terms of, Reagan mentioned earlier, in terms of, the association between the gut and other organs, yes, there's certainly strong associations with everything I have listed here. So, from all the way from skin disorders through to mental health disorders, through to allergic, immune-related disorders, autoimmune as well. And, hypothyroidism, there's certainly an autoimmune component to that. So if it's driven by autoimmunity, where our immune cells are attacking us, which we certainly don't want to happen, then that can be driven from the guts. So the gut really has this strong communication with our immune system. And if we lose that communication, that nice, constant communication, steady flow of communication, then we can get the, discommunication, and the immune system overreacts. And this overreaction can, in time, result in these chronic issues such as autoimmune conditions. So, yes, it does originate from the gut. If we get that gut communication well, get that gut into balance, then we can help the immune system better regulate itself. And yes, it has been associated with being overweight and obesity. So these are some of the more chronic conditions that can emerge from, poor health over time, over a period of time. The previous symptoms are more what you feel on can be straight after you eat, essentially. Some people feel this all day. Without eating, and it's better for without eating, and certain foods irritate it. So we're going to cover, what sort of foods can provide that irritation and what you can do about it. So in terms of the influencing factors, there are many, of course, there always is. So one of the big ones is stress, which we'll be covering a lot of, because we have so much of that in our lives. Look at the current circumstances of today, with the uncertainty of, when we're going to be resuming back to normal, or if that's ever going to happen, and uncertainty around jobs and income. And so there's a whole lot of stress going on, and it's part of our lives. And so we need to help we need to help ourselves better regulate that stress so that it doesn't affect or implicate our health long term. And yes, I've got here, there's a gut-brain connection. There's a direct connection via the vagus nerve, the 10th cranial nerve. So that's, a two-way street between the gut and the brain. And as you've probably heard it before, that the gut has its own nervous system. So people refer to that as our second brain. So there's a strong connection there. Therefore, if you're feeling stress, it can result in that feeling sick, nausea, doesn't feel right, I can't eat, or I'm overeating because I'm not feeling well. I'm looking for that feeling better through food. And, food can stimulate that vagus nerve, that rest and digest function. And hence, while people are stressed, at night, they can tend to overeat because, it can provide that sort of relaxing influence on their body. So we know that poor diet is a big contributing factor to our gut health, and we're going to be going into that in more detail, and particularly the Western diet. So today's Western diet is very low in fruit and vegetables. In some cases, it's extremely low, and it's very high in meats and saturated fats, and so that causes this imbalance I was speaking to earlier. Inadequate sleep, again, that puts stress on the body, because in order for us to function the next day, if we haven't been sleeping, our body produces more cortisol to keep us functioning, because at the end of the day, the body will always prioritize survival over anything else. So it will, I guess, put resources towards all the survival functions and take those resources away from things that aren't required for short-term survival, such as our reproductive organs, such as our digestive function, such as our immune health. All these things are put on standby whilst we have stress and stressors. So we do need to regulate that stress to allow our digestive function to kick in, for our reproductive system to be active and producing a nice balance of hormones, and also our immune system to be well regulated and to be working against things we want it to work against, such as pathogens, those viruses that we don't want, or the bacteria that's not wanted. We don't want our immune system attacking our own cells. So in order for that regulation, that happy state to happen, we need to maintain balance in our bodies, and we maintain that balance through doing a lot of what we can around regulating stress. And we're going to go into those. What are those things you can do to help regulate that stress so that you're not in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, that survival mode? You can, be in that rest and digest mode. And that rest and digest mode is where our gut functions best. And secondly, it's where we repair ourselves. We do our maintenance. So if we're in that constant fight, flight, stress state, our body's not repairing, it's not digesting, and that leads to chronic disease. Our environment plays a part in this as well. So the pollution, rising damp in the home, EMFs, those electromagnetic frequencies that are emitted by mobiles, electronic devices, emitted by power lines. So all these things, microwaves, for example, when we sunbake too much sun, excessive radiation exposure, that all implicates our gut health, and it puts a stress on the body. Too much exercise, as well as too little. So studies have shown exercise helps that bacteria that I spoke about, but too much of it actually takes oxygen away from our digestive function. So we need to find that balance, and you'll probably hear me over and over again throughout this presentation talking about finding balance. It's really essential. And last but not least is drugs. So this is medicinal drugs, and yes, some people need to be on medication for various reasons. I'm not saying don't take it, but I'm just letting you know that there's implications on certainly our gut health from these medications, as well as recreational drugs and also alcohol. So after covering the influencing factors, what does all those sort of stresses have in terms of our digestive function, our gut health? And what it does is slow it down. As I mentioned, when we're stressed, it's survival. It turns off functions that aren't required for short-term survival to get away from that tiger. So therefore, our motility, so that's the moving of the food through the stomach, through the small intestine, through the large intestine, and eventually out the anus, that slows down. So hence people get constipation. The other thing it does is also slow down the release of these digestive enzymes I mentioned earlier. In terms of these digestive enzymes are released from our mouth, our liver, that produces gall, goes to our gallbladder, or bile that goes to our gallbladder. And then the pancreas produces digestive enzymes as well. So when we're stressed, we're producing less of these digestive enzymes that we need to break down the food. Hence, the food can sit there and we can feel bloated and, yuck for ages. It will also lower our stomach acid. So chronic stress will lower our stomach acid. So some people have stomach acid that's so low that whenever they eat anything, they feel yuck straight away. The body's just not wanting to digest it. And what we need to do is restore that balance. We need to, better manage the stress. We need to make sure that we've got the nutritional factors that support stomach acid production, and that we're eating in a non-stressed environment, so that we allow ourselves to, assimilate these, to produce these digestive enzymes, so we assimilate the food. And I guess further down the track, what does that low stomach acid, the change in the acid alkaline environment cause? Well, it causes, this imbalance, this dysbiosis. So you've got bacteria that normally wouldn't reside in an area, residing in that area because it can survive in that area because it's a changed pH. It's the acidic alkaline environment has changed, hence that bacteria can now reside there. And if it's continued to be fed the right foods, it will multiply. And certain bacteria, produce gases, and some bacteria produce gases that are beneficial for us. Others produce hydrogen and methane, which we don't want in large quantities. So that results in inflammation, and inflammation can result in an immune system that gets out of balance and causes all sorts of symptoms. That inflammation, we know systemic inflammation can lead to mental or inflammation in the brain. So that can result in mental health issues. So we certainly want to keep this all in check. We want a good balance of this bacteria, and we need to help the ecosystem. So if we allow the right ecosystem to thrive, then the right bacteria can live in the right locations, and we feed a balance and variety of food, we keep that ecosystem happy. And that those bacteria, not only they can produce good gases such as butyrate, that help fuel our enteric lining, our gastrointestinal tract. It helps provide fuel for those cells. It's anti-inflammatory and helps, the integrity of our lining. And that lining is what protects us from the outside world. So if we don't have strong integrity of that gastrointestinal tract, and there's, leak, if it's more permeable. I'm just going to check, someone's joined us, so excuse me. I'll also check the chat function while we're here. G'day, Ashley. We're well underway, but I am recording it, so you certainly can catch up on the recording. Okay, back to my presentation. So that's, if we have this more permeable gastrointestinal tract, it allows things that shouldn't be getting through straight into the bloodstream. And hence, our immune system starts responding to this thing that shouldn't be there and think that shouldn't be there. I need to attack it, and it results in this inflammatory response. And if we constantly have this, leakage straight into our blood system, then we have this immune system that gets out of balance and out of control, and that results in, excessive inflammation and all sorts of symptoms as a result of excessive inflammation. More stress hormones, less digestive function, less removal of toxins, so if our digestive function is not functioning well, we're not getting out our toxins through our feces as well, or as regular. And so this, it just results in this compounding effect of toxin buildup. And so our body doesn't function well, and it can result in fatigue, tiredness, no vitality to do things. So we certainly don't want that, and this is why we need to get this right ecosystem for our bacteria so that we have them thriving, and that helps us to thrive. So I mentioned earlier, we need to manage our stress. There's so many stressors, and I talked about them before, what those stresses are. Now, here's a list of things that can help you regulate stress throughout the day. Stress isn't going to go away. Stress is part of our life. Stress helps us achieve deadlines. It drives activity. It makes things happen. So yes, we need, I guess, an element of stress, but it doesn't need to take over our lives and take over us. We need this balance. And so this is what I'm helping you do, is find, or more, put you back in control so that you can help better regulate the stresses. Because there's constant input of stresses. It's just how resilient our body is to managing those stresses. And that's what everything I'm showing here on this slide is things that can help you better be more resilient, better regulate the stress hormones, and therefore allow for better digestive function. So what are they? So I mentioned exercise, but again, not too much, not too little, just right. We want to go to that balance. Nature. So, being in, I guess, urban environments, we get very disconnected from nature. And nature provides that very calming, that feeling of peace. So, the more we can connect with nature throughout the day, the more at peace we are, more relaxed we are, the better we digest, the better secretion of digestive enzymes we have, the right stomach acid we have, the better environment of bacteria, or better balance of bacteria, better gut function, feel happier, feel more energetic. So yeah, getting regular bursts of nature, that could be spending some time in a park, walking on grass, going down to the beach, and going for a swim in the ocean. All these things really help. Bushwalking, even looking at a tree and observing the tree and watching the leaves rustle in the winds, listening to sounds, listening to birds, all that really helps calm us. And I suggest you do it. You can find a tree not too far away and just really observe it, and take interest in it, or take interest in a particular bird, or tune your ears into a particular sound of nature. If you don't have it around you, you can always play it in the house. There's nature sounds that you can play. Friends, obviously connecting with friends. And these are the ones that are, I guess, more cheering and optimistic and have a good outlook on life. It's not the ones that are negative. So you certainly don't want to be associating too much with the negative ones. They may be family, so I'm not saying disconnect from them, but certainly if you want to do self-care, find time away from these people, and hang out with someone that lifts you and makes you feel good about yourself and makes you laugh. Mindfulness. So again, this is just connecting with the here and now. So it's getting your head out of what's going to happen, or you predicting the future, which no one can do. So don't worry about the future. It's just live the present. That's all we can do. And the past has happened, so there's no point of living in the past because it's done and dusted. The best thing we can do, and when we feel the happiest, is when we're living in the present moment and just enjoying the now, being you. So things that can take you into the now are practices like meditation. There's apps out there, Headspace apps, my&my app. There's the Calm app. Just have to type it in the browser. Breathing exercises. There's huge number of breathing exercises. Google it. Go to YouTube. There's many. There's yoga type of breathing. There's the Wim Hof breathing. There's square breathing. There's the 4, 7, and 8 breathing. So there's so many techniques. It's just really you finding what works for you. There's dance. Moving our body with music helps take us into the moment. We're just enjoying the now. We're moving in that rhythm. It takes us away from thinking about the future and worrying about it. Yoga is another thing. When you're connecting, I guess, exercise, and yoga is very much connecting breath with movement. So like dance is connecting, I guess, movement with beats. Yoga is connecting breath with movement. Taking regular breaks. So this, it's actually scheduling in time to break, to stop doing, and to be being, to just be present. So really scheduling in time for that, because it's in those moments, such as when we're eating, that we want to have a break from these stressors, break from the emails, a break from the social media. We want to just connect with our food. And at that moment of connecting with our food, we are present. We actually engage with the food through our senses. We smell it, we taste it, we can see it, and that, those sensories then obviously tell our organs that secrete digestive enzymes to get ready for this food. It's coming. And this is why it's so important to cook these days. And cooking is therapeutic in a sense that it's just you and food. It's very natural. And I think it can be seen as a stress when you've got to feed starving kids and things like that. So yeah, I do hear you, but it can be very therapeutic if you can find time to enjoy it. If not, then it's really embracing the food in front of you and connecting with it. It's in religion, you say a prayer before a meal, and that's essentially thanking God for the food in front of you, and that's drawing presence to what you're about to eat. It's getting you mindful. So giving thanks and gratitude is another way in which we can manage stress. And prayer. So now, what can we do on the dietary side of things? Okay, so I did talk a lot about stress and managing that stress. That's important. Then I went on to what we can do to make us in a more resourceful state to assimilate the food, such as really connecting with it. So I'll talk further on that. I think it's very important because when I said, our GIT, our gut, starts in our mouth, one of the ways in which we break down food is chewing it. And if we're not chewing our food for long enough, it puts more of a digestive load on the stomach, the small intestine, to break down the food. And that can be one of the reasons why people, as soon as they eat, they feel terrible. And they feel bloated and yucky, and it's just because they just slammed down a meal, and it's just hit the stomach. The stomach's not ready for it. It's thinking, what do I do with this? I've got to start making some enzymes to break it down, and this takes time. Whereas the whole process of cooking is preparing your body for the digestion of that food. And so if you're not cooking, then it's really just engaging with what you're about to eat, being mindful, creating space. So not watching shows, not being distracted, not answering text messages, not answering emails. It's really engaging with what you're about to have, smell it, taste it, but chewing it, and really chew it well. Chew it so it's liquid. Chew it so that you can't chew anymore and you're swallowing just basically liquid. And that will make a big difference if you're getting this immediate bloating and feeling yuck after eating food. If you just slow down slow down that eating process. If you struggle with that, use chopsticks. That can really slow you down. And these long meals, there's a reason why we used to have these long meals, because it was time to engage with others, socialize, enjoy, and that whole slow process really allows for good digestive function. Because you think about it, you're taking a bite, you're chewing, you're putting down your cutlery, you're chewing, then you talk, and then after a bit of talk, you then put some more food down. And the other thing this really helps with is not overeating. So part of the reason why you have this discomfort can be because you've eaten too much. And if you want to control, be more in control with what you eat slower, because your body will send the satiety signals to the brain. in that period of time. And this is why when we have a 3-course meal, we don't eat much. They're all small courses, but we feel full. It's because we're eating it over a long period of time, and it allows that time for that transmission of signals to the brain to say, yes, I'm full, or I'm about 80% full, I don't need any more. If we throw it all down, we're not allowing enough time for that to register and send that signal, and it tends to be too late. So what can we do? We can certainly remove irritants, known and potential allergens. So what are they? So typically dairy, there's soy, there's, particular nuts can be, wheat, egg. They're probably the main ones in terms of what medicine diagnoses people with allergies. I mean, there's others, of course. So if you not sure, you can eliminate them from your diet and see if there's an improvement. So you eliminate wheat, eliminate dairy. You can take, it's mainly peanuts, but some people are allergic to other nuts. Seeds tend to be okay, although there are a few people that are allergic to seeds, but certainly soy products and eggs. So if you take out those real known irritants for a period of time, see if that makes a difference. That can help. I know people that just remove dairy, and it makes all the difference. I have clients that say the same with wheat, and certainly the combination makes a big difference. So you can start at that starting point and see if the symptoms subside, and certainly adopt everything I've just previously mentioned. In terms of restoring this gut integrity, remember I showed you this, if we don't have this good intestinal lining, we have allow these allergens or things that aren't supposed to get into the bloodstream, allow them direct access. So how do we get that better barrier function? So the amino acid glutamine is fantastic. It fuels the enterocytes. So the enterocytes are the cells that line the gastrointestinal tract. So it's a fuel for them. Their food source. So, where can you get glutamine? It comes from anything that's a complete protein or a protein source. So bone broths are a great one. They're very anti-inflammatory too, so very nutritious. So bone broths, particularly now that we're going into bone broth season, suggest you get into some bone broths for that. The other issue with glutamine is that if you've got low stomach acid, you're not breaking down your protein, because that's where we start digesting protein, is in the stomach. It starts breaking down the bonds. So yeah, if you have that, highly stressed person, low stomach acid, part of the problem is you might be eating enough protein, but you're not assimilating it. You're not assimilating the amino acids, the essential amino acids. So we have essential amino acids, which we need to get from foods, and then there's non-essential amino acids, which we can make from the essential amino acids. So it's important that you've got good hydrochloric acid in your stomach by managing your stress. The other thing that is involved with the manufacturing of hydrochloric acid is zinc, and zinc is also healing to the gastrointestinal tract. So making sure you've got adequate amounts of zinc. Now, zinc's bound to protein. So again, if you've got this low stomach acid, you may not be breaking down the protein and releasing the zinc and assimilating the zinc. So you may have enough in your diet, but it may be the assimilation that's not happening. So this is where supplementation short term can really benefit a person. You're not relying on the body trying to break down that protein when it's got low stomach acid. So what you can do is buy supplements that help boost stomach acid. That you can also purchase supplements that are digestive enzymes that help the breakdown of foods, help the breakdown of protein. I've got PHGG here and slippery elm. So these are plant-based. So PHGG is partially hydrolyzed guar gum. So it comes from a plant, same with slippery elm. These are fantastic prebiotics. So what is a prebiotic? It feeds the probiotic, and the probiotic is that bacteria that we ingest through foods that's positive for us, that has a positive influence on our health. There's obviously bacteria that doesn't have a positive influence. That's not a probiotic. It's a pathogen. Yeah, so these slippery elms, PHGG, partially hydrolyzed guar gum, both are prebiotics, so they feed our good bacteria, or feed the bacteria we want. They're fiber, good fiber, so it helps with obviously getting bowel motions or movement. It also is anti-inflammatory properties. So it has anti-inflammatory properties, so it can reduce inflammation. If you have really inflammatory bowels, most likely you're experiencing diarrhea. So these things can be really helpful, particularly irritable bowel syndrome. Slippery elm powder you can buy from the health food store, and I don't think you can get in the supermarkets. You may these days, possibly. And you can just add it to smoothies. It's probably the easiest way to have it, or add it to breakfast cereal. The one I've mentioned here is a one probiotic strain, which I know's got a lot of research published on it, on this single strain. Now, there's lots of probiotics out there. There's lots of different strains. What the research has shown that we need, if we want a particular outcome, we need to make sure we're taking the right strain for the outcome that we're trying to achieve. So there's particular strains that are being shown to, in various studies, whether it be rodent studies or human studies, to benefit people with depression, anxiety, IBS, ASD, autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, what else? Obesity. There's particular strains that help with obesity. It's very strain specific. I know this strain is really helpful in terms of lowering the inflammation, helping the establishment of that ecosystem, helping good gastrointestinal tract motility, so helping the bowels move, helping get out the toxins. That particular strain is really helpful. There's other strains that are also helpful, but I've seen probably the most evidence around this strain. And prebiotic food. So we're going to get onto the foods you should be eating right now. Just going to have a time check. We're running to time, which is good. So as I mentioned, prebiotics are the fuel for our bacteria. So it's the food we eat. Now, what is the slow principle? I love the slow principle, firstly, because you can remember slow in terms of eating mindfully. Slow down, chew 15 to 20 times. Try that next meal you have. Try chewing the food 15 to 20 times, and you'll notice how liquid it is. And if you do that with every mouthful, I can guarantee after that, well, you probably won't eat as much, firstly, and secondly, you'll feel so much better because it's less load. You've actually started the digestive process in the mouth. There's enzymes. We start breaking down carbohydrates and fats in the mouth, and this is why we have a tendency to love carbohydrates and fats, or the combination, such as ice cream, because we start breaking it down in the mouth. So hence why we're addicted to those foods that are high in carbohydrates and fats. S for seasonal produce. Why seasonal produce? Because it has the most vitality. It has, I guess, the best in terms of its vibrational energy properties. It's got the most phytonutrients, plant-based nutrients that provide a beneficial effect on our body in terms of healthy outcomes. More vitamins, more minerals. So this is why we want to eat seasonal. How to eat seasonal? Farmers markets is probably the best way. Go to your local farmers markets if you have one. If not, Harris Farms probably a good place as well. Or your local fresh fruit and veggie person that goes to the markets. The other one is eat local. Why eat local? because over time, certain vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients will decline. So if we want it to be vibrant, get the most out of that quality of food, we want it to be locally produced, so it's got a shorter supply chain. Excuse me. I need to breathe a bit more. Getting too excited. O for organic. So organic is why organic? Well, if it's not organic, then it's most likely sprayed. And the pesticide you obviously ingest because it gets taken in by the fruit or the vegetable. And what happens is not only it stops the bacteria attacking or the fungi attacking the fruit when it's on the crop or in plantation, but it also is going to kill the bacteria in our stomach. So if we can eat organic. If if the cost is prohibitive, then I suggest this dirty dozen, clean 15. So the dirty dozen are crops that are heavily sprayed. The clean 15 are ones generally that got skins or don't need there's not as many things that attack it in the environment, so that it doesn't need as much pesticide or very little, or they have skins that you take off. So so if you're going to adopt this dirty dozen, clean 15, then that will also help the better balance, creating that nice ecosystem we spoke about earlier. Whole foods. Whole foods, what do I mean by that? It's, I guess, not extremely processed foods. The more processed, like, for example, white bread or raw sugar, white sugar, for example, it goes through huge amounts of processing. A lot of the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and fiber are taken out in that processing. Our gut feeds off the fiber. That's what it lives off. It also feeds off protein and fats, and probably the bacteria we want less of feeds off the protein and fats. The bacteria that we want more of feeds off the fiber. So we need lots of fiber. So we get this diversity I spoke about. So before I get on to sleep diversity, so I mentioned earlier, when they've looked at the bacteria from indigenous tribes, what they've found is they have far greater diversity than what we Westerners do. And they do a comparison. They notice so many more strains. And then they look at the health of this population, this indigenous population or this tribe, and they don't experience the chronic diseases or the rates that we do. And some they don't experience at all. And so what we know is that they eat a far diverse range of plant matter than what we do in the Western world. So what I suggest you do is eat as much variety. And how to do that: when you go to the supermarket, buy something you've never bought before. Just buy it. Find out what it's called, Google it, and find a recipe and introduce it and try new things. Some things you'll love, some things you won't like, and some things will be okay. It is slow cooker season. So, slow cookers can be great, just throwing a whole lot of vegetables in there and letting it stew and putting herbs and spices, and you put some legumes, and you can have a really nice fibrous slow cooked stew. For example, the colors is really helpful, because that helps you go for variety. So if you're aiming for your plate to have lots of colors, that's going to mean more variety. It means that you're feeding different strains of bacteria and allowing for this greater diversity, which will translate in healthier outcomes. So I mentioned sleep earlier, and this is so important, and I can't recommend this enough, because, as I said, what we've seen in studies is that poor sleep results in less diversity, more gastrointestinal problems as a result of more stress hormones to keep you functioning the next day. So we need the sleep because we want this happy balance, this ecosystem of bacteria. We don't want to implicate it. So the studies show that, one poor night's sleep can implicate your bacteria. So that causes that dysbiosis or disharmony, which results in symptoms. And this, over a long period of time, can result in some of those chronic diseases that I showed earlier. So we need to make sure that we get good sleep, and the way in which we get good sleep is by consistency, and same time to bed, same time to wake. What also important is the time at which you go to bed. The most restorative time, research has shown, is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So this is why, you hear a lot about these high-performing people. They are very early morning risers, but they also go to bed very early. And the reason why it probably works so well for them is that they are getting that restorative sleep. They may get less hours of sleep, but they're getting the deep restorative sleep. And that's where a lot of the repairing goes on, the cellular repair. So we want that deep restorative sleep. We need that by, getting ourselves ready for bed well before when we want to go to sleep. And we're going to go into that on the next slide. Morning sun is vital because this helps our body do day functions and night functions. It turns on that circadian rhythm. So it tells the cell to do daytime things such as secreting digestive enzymes to break down food, because we eat food during the day. And this is why people on night shift struggle, because our bodies produces more digestive enzymes during the daylight hours. So we need to get that morning sun to tell the cells that it's daytime, to do daytime functions. And then what we need to tell the cells it's nighttime by turning down the lights. And I'm going to go into a good routine around that on the next slide. Obviously, it's important to minimize stimulants. These stimulants are only going to make it harder to sleep that night. I know this can be difficult when you've had consecutive nights of no sleep, but really persisting and breaking that habit really helps with getting that good night's sleep. So certainly don't have coffee after 12. Some people shouldn't have coffee at all. It all depends on your constitution, whether you've got much of the enzyme or that breaks down coffee and things like that. And exercise. So movement every day really helps with a good night's sleep. So this is a sleep routine I've put together, and I pretty much do everything in this. So certainly eating earlier is helpful because it's hard to sleep on a full stomach. So if we can eat earlier, the better. It also helps with good gut function. So studies have shown that intermittent fasting, that 16 hours or in between 12 and 16 hours of resting the digestive function, that's not eating, you can drink, really helps with reducing inflammation, as well as helping with that nice ecosystem. So to get, to keep a nice balance there. So certainly eating early can help with that longer rest between meals and allow that rejuvenation and resting the digestive system for better function the next day. Relaxing after dinner is key, not getting back onto work or internet. We need to start winding down the mind. So you can do some of these things, read your favorite book, watch your favorite show, provided it's not too stimulating. Start reducing lighting. So this is essential. So this is telling the cells it's nighttime, do nighttime things such as make our melatonin, which is a hormone that helps us sleep. So we need to in order to manufacture melatonin, our body, our light receptors in our eyes need to see less light, or needs to be reduced, and therefore our body thinks, yep, nighttime functions, start making melatonin, therefore you can sleep. Play some relaxing music, start calming yourself down, start emptying the mind, emptying your thoughts onto the notepad, writing down anything that's really stressing you out. Just that whole action of just writing it down really takes it out of the mind, puts it on paper, and makes you feel better. You're getting it out of your system. And then finishing with gratitude. That act of gratitude, as I mentioned, is calming, relaxing, brings us peace. It's being thankful for the things that go well and the gestures that people do. And it's appreciating what you have, appreciating the loved ones around you, appreciating the comforts you have. You know, there's some people that obviously less fortunate, and so we should appreciate what we do have, because there's those that don't have as much as we have. So again, it's expressing that gratitude, that thanks, and thanking those that have helped you in that day and helped you, you know, on your life's journey. So expressing that gratitude just puts out those positive thoughts, feelings, and makes you feel better about yourself. These are some other things you can do: Epsom salt bath with essential oils, do a meditation, do some breathing exercises, some light stretching after a shower. Really, it's just sending signals to your brain to relax. So if you're relaxing the muscles, it's saying to the brain, everything's okay. I don't need to be tense. I'm away from that tiger now. That threatening email from the boss is no longer worried about that. It's on a bit of paper. And, you know, getting to bed before 10 is ideal. Again, we are all different. We all have completely unique makeups. So some people, they have this more night tendencies. And so this window is, you know, there is, you know, it's not hard and fast that it has to be 10 p.m. There are some people that have more of that night owl in them. So it's really just making sure you do get to bed at a reasonable time in the evening to allow for as much sleep before 2 a.m. So in summary, and in good time, allowing some time for questions at the end. So I'm certainly going to hang around at the end. So feel free, if you've got any questions from the presentation, to ask those, and I'm happy to stay on and answer them. So in summary, as I mentioned a lot in the earlier slides, managing your stress. We can't take it away. It's always going to be there. It's important to us, but we don't want stress overtaking us. We want to be in control. To be in control, we need to be doing things that regulate stress, such as taking baths. It does help, but taking adequate breaks throughout the day. Doing self-care, doing things for yourself, doing things that make you happy, things you love. Follow the Healing Gut guidelines. I will send you a copy of the presentation afterwards, and if you have any questions, more than happy to answer them, or if there's any confusion around that. Eating according to the slow principles. I think everyone on this call could benefit from slowing down and eating well and chewing well, and really engaging with the food you're about to have. Meditate over it. Be mindful with it. You'll eat less. You'll enjoy chocolate and have that satisfaction with the chocolate with less. So less is more. So implement the sleep routine. Look after your sleep. It's so important. It helps with the stress, management of stress, and it helps our gut function. We need to repair our cells. We need to do our maintenance at night time. And if you do everything above and everything I've previously mentioned consistently, then you will absolutely have better health outcomes. So thank you so much for joining today's webinar. Really appreciate you investing time into your health, and hoping this is of benefit to you. And yes, I'll hang around for any questions. So is there any questions?